kind of problems or just failing classes, but I don't know what the reasons were that he was held back. And I got to tell you that holding a kid back 2 years is pretty extreme.
Really?
Although
Seriously.
they used to do that a lot. They used to think that that was how they would clean you up, is they would hold you back.
You just needed another year to learn.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That was always my nightmare when I was in grade school and high school. It's like, oh my God, the worst thing ever.
Oh yeah,
But
no, I knew the
that's
19-year-old kid who was a junior in high school. It's like, oh, buddy, what did you do?
I just think that's a really long time to hold on to a grudge like that.
A weird...
And for that to not be connected to anybody else. You know, it'd be one thing if like a bunch of teachers or people connected to that school or the hometown were getting this stuff. But for this one, like, well, he happens to have gone to a school where she worked 10 years ago.
Yes, that makes you think of that scene where Steve Buscemi has the list of people written down and he's putting on the lipstick and then crossing them out. That was in that, oh God.
Is it that Adam Sandler
Yeah, it was an Adam Sandler movie.
I can't remember the name of the movie. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but that's Billy Madison. But that's the kind of thing that you would expect. But the thing is that there's all kinds of problems with this because apparently when Joan got her bomb, Wavra was in jail.
I was going to say, it sounds like he would have been in jail if they raided his house and found a bomb.
Yeah, so he was already incarcerated, and then he was again arrested in 1995. This arrest in 95 would take place because he was in the Brooklyn Public Library and found to have yet another hollowed out book, but inside that book he had X-Acto knives.
Apparently what I heard in one account anyway is that he was hiding razor blades inside the pages of library books, putting them back on the shelves.
It sounds like what he'd done is put his X-Acto knives in his hollowed out book to smuggle them in, and then was putting them in other books.
Yeah.
So when they arrested him, they found 4 .22 caliber cartridges on him, which based on his record, and I'm presuming the terms of his parole, were a violation of parole, so he was instantly hit with the book, no pun intended.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah,
intended.
a little bit. So they obviously charged him, and he went to jail. So that also means that if that's in 95 and he's in custody, it doesn't make any sense that he could have been responsible for the last bomb, which was in 1996.
Yeah.
So this doesn't work.
Yeah, but the cops obviously really must have believed he was the bomber because, and the prosecutors too, because typically people don't even go to prison at all. They go back to prison for parole violations. So sending him back for 10 years, that's pretty serious.
I think that he probably, from what I can gather, he'd had many encounters with law enforcement.
It could have been the last straw. It could have been, yeah, but I'm just saying, finding somebody with a fuse.
His sentence, this one that happened, it was a 90-month sentence. That he got out in 2005 after serving a 90-month sentence. I don't know what came before that. So I think he spent more life incarcerated than he has out in the free world. So that gives you an idea.
So outcarcerated.
I didn't think outcarcerated was the right word, but
it's not. It's not.
Yeah, I think it should
Thanks,
be.
Joe. Thanks for screwing me up there, buddy. Well, let's move on to the next theory here, which is that it wasn't Stephen Wavra. It was Stephen Wavra and a friend.
Yeah.
Because once the cops got a hold of the fact that, he was in jail, they immediately said that he had an accomplice. Okay, wait. Let me run with this though.
Okay.
This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just let it happen.
Yeah.
So their theory is that Wavra assembled the components of the bombs and then mailed them to a partner who was outside of the jail system, and that person then mailed the packages, which I have to say, stealing a phrase from Devin, is the dumbest thing I've heard all day.
Well, it's ever heard, but whatever.
Well, I was going to say it a long time, but
Yeah.
I decided just to classify it today because I hear lots of dumb things because I'm on the internet all the time.
Sure.
But they look at your mail when you're in prison.
But listen, they go through prisoners' outgoing mail.
Yeah.
They inspect it, so it can't that just doesn't pass the sniff test to me.
Yeah, although,
that they would be like, he's got these little metal tubes and he's got these springs and he's just mailing it out. That's weird.
No, but it is an idiotic idea. Although it's not inconceivable that an accomplice actually did mail the last bomb while he was locked up in jail.
Okay.
It's not because.
But what about the first one? Because it appears he was incarcerated when the first one happened as well.
Yeah, and that one could have been a different person, or it could have been an accomplice. But I mean, it's like, one of these bombs, they're not that complicated. I mean, Wavra, it could have been this accomplice actually showed Wavra how to make these bombs.
True.
It could be that Wavra showed him, the other guy, how to make them, because they're not that hard to make.
And that's not a bad point that you're making there, Joe. I will mention here before we finish this particular theory, that the second party's name is never given, which is frustrating because there's a roommate in the 1983 time when the cops come in and find him with all this explosive stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a roommate who he says was never involved, but that roommate's name is never disclosed.
So we'll call him Justin?
Yeah, let's call him Justin.
Okay.
Perfect.
Because we're presuming that Justin is also the person that is involved in the later mailing while he's in jail.
Yep.
They do say that there's some loose ends that they tie to Justin, which is the fact that the victims and Justin appear to have all used the same pharmacy, even though they're all over the city.
I thought that was just two of the victims.
Well, it's either they used the same pharmacy or they lived in the same neighborhoods. So over this span, and so some of these are in Brooklyn, some are in Queens. One is, oh gosh, where's the other one that's on the left side of the map that I can't think of?
One in Staten Island?
Something like that, yeah, but they're all over. So it's weird that Justin, as we're calling him, is in the neighborhood or using the same pharmacy as all these people. So you can see why the cops are saying, well, this is weird.
Yeah.
His body is all over the same place.
You want to take a close look at that guy?
Yeah.
Sure.
But also like equally weird. They're not like, well, then Justin did it. They're
Right.
like, well, but still it was Wavra.
Right, yeah, we don't have enough to pull any of them in, but
Yeah.
we're just saying this. But then they go on to what is our next theory, which is that it was Wavra and Justin and one other friend.
I
So-
like it.
Because
the
they
theory
build
keeps
on-
getting more and more complicated.
Because they build on this theory and they say that this third person, who is also unnamed, and well, let's just call him Aaron.
Okay.
So we've got Justin and Aaron and Stephen Wavra, and they say that according to this, the addition of Aaron is because Aaron was the one who was paying for the bombs and picking out the targets. So now it's one layer more removed from the actual person doing the dirty work. So Aaron tells Justin, who then tells Stephen Wavra, who then is doing it.
As a way of insulating yourself from being charged with a crime and going to prison, this is really perverse and stupid because actually it's safer just to build them yourself and letting anybody else in.
You're in a single cell.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a sure way to get ratted out and sent to jail. So it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
While we're doing this, I think this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard because it's like, basically what they did is they said, well, we've got this guy who's got some pretty significant mental illness going on, and that obviously makes him dangerous. Not my words, I'm just putting words in the pop's mouths. Makes him really dangerous, so he's obviously guilty of this. Now let's see if we can find a way to make it seem like he's definitely guilty of this. Oh, he was in jail for 2 of the bombings? Okay, no problem. There was another person. Oh, that other person couldn't possibly have done that? Awesome. There's another person still, because we are so convinced that this one person is definitely guilty that we will tailor our story to whatever we have to tailor it to make sure that this guy seems guilty, which is, as we've been saying, the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It does sound like the logic of a 4-year-old telling a story.
It's not even that. It's just like it's like those Forensic Files episodes where they're like, and then 20 years later, DNA evidence proved that this person was definitely not guilty because the cops had spent 18 hours interrogating them with like threatening techniques. So they of course said, oh, you're right, I did do that.
Wait, use the phrase Joe loves, the rubber hose.
The rubber hose.
Yeah,
Using the rubber hose on
the waterboard.
Yeah, I mean, I just think they just got so fixated, and that's really a detriment. I'm sorry, I'm on a little bit. It's a really detriment to the case in general because I'm sure there were other things they could have been investigating that would have been like better leads coming from this stuff that they probably didn't because they were like, no, we've got our guy, it's fine. It's Stephen Wavra.
You're right, though. As a rule, when your theory gets too complicated, this applies in not just crime, but in science and other things as well. Sometimes.
Anytime you have to add a third person to like make your theory work, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah. It's another possibility is that it could have been somebody that Wavra knew, because it's not unusual for people to share common hobbies and pursuits.
Yeah,
So it
people
could have been-
do tend to band together around
He knew
endeavors.
He knew some guy, maybe somebody he even met from the military or whatever, that was really into amateur bomb making and all kinds of stuff like that. And maybe this guy showed him a thing or two, but Wavra himself never actually did a thing. And as far as mailing these things, somebody else entirely. And Wavra, for his part, didn't rat the guy out because, why should he
He
do
just
that?
turns out to actually be a patsy.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. We've got 2 theories left in this, and these are actually going to also go quick, just like the last 2. So this next theory is that this entire thing was perpetrated by some unknown crank.
Yeah.
That's my words.
Yeah.
Because as with all stories like this, it's entirely possible that the person that is responsible is obviously unknown, but is also rather unconnected to all of the individuals that were targeted. And the targeting was done based on some unknown perceived slight. I mean, the most subtle of interactions, as in you pass by somebody and you look at them and keep going, and they may take that as a slight, kind of unknown slight, like the simplest, weirdest stuff.
I'm shaking my head because it's like, I don't even know that there has to be a reason. Sometimes people are just like, I'm gonna kill some people.
It
Yeah.
could have just been
Doesn't matter
entirely
who they
random.
are.
Could have been entirely random.
Although I gotta tell you, I loved the statement from one of the New York Police Department guys, where he's like, "That the weird thing about this is that New Yorkers, if they've got a problem with you, they'll just come at you. They'll punch you in the face, or they'll throw something through your window, like they'll confront you. And this just doesn't make any sense because
maybe-
it's so."
And that's
Maybe
why this
he's not
guy,
from New York.
I was going to say, and that's why this guy is clearly from the Midwest.
I know, no doubt.
Passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's technically the Pacific Northwest, but whatever.
Yeah, but it might be too that the people themselves are totally unimportant. They're randomly picked out of a phone book, and it might be the bombs themselves are the message. It might be that like this bomb had 2 barrels, this bomb had 3.
This one was the
date-
Odyssey. That one was, a Melville book. I mean, who knows?
It might be some sort of weird code that we can't comprehend. It could be something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I doubt it, but it may well be there was a message there somewhere, but the people had nothing to do with it.
True.
Yeah.
Well, our final theory is I think the worst in terms of like spooky worst, and that is that this is done by a bunch of copycats. Because
Makes sense.
the way this goes is that, basically the first one was sent by somebody, and 11 years went by. And there's a ton of reporting that happened on this story, and over time, details leaked out. I've read the early 90s reporting before the second bomb arrived, and there's tons of details that are leaking out that could give somebody an idea of what's going on.
How to make the bomb.
How to make the bomb, and what some of the key features were, like the multiple, the batteries and the multiple barrels. But if you think about it, it's entirely possible that somebody's like, oh, hey, I could do that, but I have a medallion box available.
Instead of a
Somebody
book.
else is like, oh, I have a medallion box too. Oh, I have a book. Like, if you think about it, ignoring Joan, the second and the third used a medallion box. The fourth used another book, and the fifth used a video cassette.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's just the cases that were handy to the individual.
Or maybe they mixed it up because they figured people might be paranoid about getting a book in the mail.
Yeah,
And then
maybe.
later on, paranoid about getting a medallion case in the mail.
Except for they did book, medallion case, book, VHS, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you think you
So-
would constantly be mixing it up. But I can't get a clear sense if the way that it was set up on the inside was actually the same. Because, again, this is an open investigation. They haven't spilled all the beans. Everything hints at that. But I've also read some stuff that makes me think that maybe there are some differences. And so they're saying, we think it's the zip gun bomber. And the media said, it's the zip gun bomber. but it may not actually be that according to the investigative team. They're like, well, no, it actually isn't.
Well,
It's different in these three areas, but
it's pretty basic stuff. I mean, here's what it is.
Nope.
Any
more about making bombs?
Nah, okay. I just want to say this. It's very, very simple. Here's why it was one guy, because all the bombs worked. So it was the same guy. I'm pretty sure.
we don't know that the
not
one that went off with Stephanie worked.
Not necessarily the very first one. No, the one that Stephanie, if it went off blue enough,
it misfired, but it still worked. I get you.
It still worked, yeah. But so I mean, it's conceivable that the very first one was somebody else, and then the next 4 were by one guy. So maybe 2 bombers.
Right, because of that giant 11-year gap.
That's because of that gap, and of course, the second bomber could have gotten all of his information from the papers. He could have been privy to the evidence in one way or another. Worked for the police department. Worked as a newspaper reporter. Saw pictures or saw the actual bombs. Had a very good idea how they were made, and again, not complicated. And but again, these things, even though they're not complicated, if you don't do everything exactly right, the bomb will not go off. And so I think that this guy, whoever it was skilled enough that he actually was able to build these bombs, and actually every single one went off.
Yeah.
If it was just a bunch of different cranks, I'm pretty sure at least one wouldn't have gone off, and you know.
And the thing that lends itself to what you're saying there, Joe, is the idea that what we talked about before, that whole double-packed gunpowder issue. If indeed they mean that somebody did home loads and put more powder in them than would traditionally be in a normal rifle round, then that would lend itself to say, oh, hell yeah, it's the same guy, because not everybody has that. While you could build your own bomb from regular stuff and buy your off-the-shelf bullet, to be able to pack your own load like that requires a whole nother skill set and tool set.
I also think the fact that it sounds like it was brake lines every time. I mean, how many people just have...
You can go to the store and buy brake line.
Yeah, but doesn't it make more sense that it would just be aren't brake lines pretty long?
You cut them.
Right, but that's what I mean. It's doesn't it make more sense that it would just be one guy had some brake line lying around and just cut a bunch of pieces off of it?
But I mean, you could literally go to the junkyard and saw them out from underneath a car.
Right, but it would be the same. It seems like it'd be the same person every time.
It really
because you could use
that is an ingredient that seems random. For everybody to hone in on to use.
Right, because you could just go down to the,
Stephen Wawra's home for zip gun construction.
Well,
we've got all your gun needs right
AKA
here.
Ace Hardware, right? And get a piece of pipe and use that.
There's nothing suspicious about buying brake line. If you're a mechanic, I mean...
There's nothing suspicious about buying any of those things.
No, not at all. You get, the bullets, again, were just as likely just lead fishing sinkers.
Yeah.
They could have just been lead balls. And,
it's just...
And as far as double packed, I saw words like double charged. So that could mean they stuck in 2 bullets in each barrel, or it could mean they stuck in twice as much gunpowder.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways that could go.
Yeah, again, I don't think cartridges were really involved in this at all. I think it was a little bomb that had 2 or 3 barrels leading off of it that had 1 or 2 bullets in each barrel. And that's what I think it was. There were no cartridges there as far as I can tell.
Well, as far as I know, I have no clue. Of the theories, I don't like any of them.
Required.
None of them are really solid.
Well, anybody could have done this. I mean, it's so simple, I mean, how hard is it to make a little bomb and mail it to somebody?
Well, I think you actually pointed out a good point, or a good idea, is that it actually is complicated enough to make sure that they work.
Oh, yeah, no.
And not a lot of people have the patience and time to do that.
But it was somebody who was meticulous.
Right.
Sure.
So I don't know if there are theories. I don't like any of them.
Agreed.
I don't know about you guys.
No, I don't think any of them are good. No. I really am very annoyed that the police just went down. They just kind of honed in on this one person and they were
hung
like, no,
for dear life.
Yeah,
he was the only
He was the
only one that even halfway plausible suspect they had.
Yeah.
So.
Which, I mean...
years later, they were still hanging on both the suspects.
Yeah, I totally understand why they gave him a good hard look. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all we've got for this particular story. If you want to read about the story, you're more than welcome to do that. You can go to our website, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, where we'll have some links to the research about this story.
Although, frankly, none of it's better than our podcast anyway, so don't bother.
While you're there, of course, you can listen to this and download this episode, or you can get any of them off of the website. But more importantly, on the website, you're going to find links to a couple other things, like the episode list, which is on the website, as well as links to all of our merchandise from Zazzle and Redbubble. Those are there. If you, obviously, you're getting the podcast from somewhere that you like to get it from, whether that be Apple or Stitcher or Google Play or wherever you're downloading, please continue to do so and subscribe. If that system allows you to leave a comment and a rating, please leave a comment and a rating. We appreciate the positive comments and ratings, and that's what